while back I uploaded an arcade ports video for St. Dragon. Many people hadn't heard of this arcade shoot 'em up classic. Many were mentioning a similar game by the name of Dragon Breed. This one released by Irem for arcades back in 1989. It's similar to St. Dragon in that we can use our dragon to block off enemy attacks. The difference here is that instead of a robotic dragon though, we are playing as the character King Chaos riding a dragon. It's a horizontal shooter and we get some really cool power-ups to enhance firepower. We can even spit out fireballs with this game. So the storyline is much like this. Chaos become the king of Agamemnon Empire at 15 years old. People who didn't agree with his enthronement conspired to break the seal to unleash the King of Darkness. The kingdom is now overrun with evil, and so King Chaos with his Dragon of Light, also referred to as Bahamut, seeks to return peace to the kingdom. It's a great shooter with nicely detailed and fairly large sprites. The tail of the dragon looks amazing as it twists and turns in the gameplay. In terms of difficulty level, the original arcades game is a fair challenge. So today we are checking out the different home conversions of Irem's horizontal school and shoot 'em up Dragon Breed. Be prepared, there is some true shockers in this one. This is one awful arcades conversion for the ZX Spectrum. Wouldn't even say this was enjoyable. I literally played it for this video as part of the ranking. I just had to include it because that is the point of these arcade port videos after all. So what is wrong with this game? Well, this atrocious game by Activision released in 1990 had pretty much everything wrong with it. Now, to be fair, I played the next version in this video first, expecting it to be the worst. But actually, the Spectrum's version surprised me of how damn slow it played. The noise that it produced, the overly large sprites on the small gameplay screen. I died many times playing the first stage and didn't even make it to the boss. I can easily play the arcade game's first stage without losing a life. But here, I must have gotten through 3 continues and didn't even get to the boss. It's clunky to control, sprites are stiff and look awkward too. It's likely the worst Spectrum shooter I've ever played. Really, just terrible. It has no introduction where Chaos jumps onto the dragon, and just like the next version in this video, it kinda looks like it has an R-type backgrounds going on. The Amstrad CPC's 1991 Activision release is kind of playable to an extent, or rather more playable than the Spec's version. The issue here is that although the developers aimed for larger sprites to imitate the arcades game, we have got a fairly small gameplay screen, and so avoiding enemies and projectiles can be hard work. I would imagine that this was ported over from the ZX Spectrum, which was very common. It's normally the Spectrum style colours which are the giveaway when this happens. As you can see, we have no background here, and of course, the original arcades game had some really nice background imagery of apocalyptic wastegrounds. Here we just have what kind of looks like a space shooter with glittering stars, bit like the Spectrum's version. We get no introduction here where King Chaos walks along to take control of the dragon. I found this version much more challenging than the 1989 Irem game. That was likely down to its slow frame rates and increased difficulty because sprites were too large and they were shooting at me with not enough room to avoid projectiles. If this had a bigger gameplay area, or if the sprites were scaled down a touch, this could have been half decent. There is no music, just sound effects which don't really sound that impressive for a 1991 Amstrad release. I won't say that this wasn't a tough version of Dragon Breed to play, because it really was. So for a couple of good things first, we had the same style opening stages with stage 1 appearing followed by the Dragon Claw marks, which adds to the arcade authenticity. The backgrounds are nicely drawn out here too. We also have a nice animation when Chaos is hit, he explodes when lightning strikes upwards and downwards. Not as visually striking as the arcade game, but it works. We get a choice of either music or sound effects with the ST's conversion, which I personally thought was shocking since the Commodore 64 managed to pull both of these off simultaneously. The mighty SID chip beating a 16-bit computer, how on earth did that happen? Okay, so the gameplay itself, I will be honest, the toughness of this version is painful at times. The issue is here of what has happened to most other ports of this game. The screen is dominated with larger scaled sprites, and very little room to dodge projectiles, which are also scaled up here in size. The Atari ST also struggles at times when too much is happening at once. I think that the gameplay for the Commodore 64 version would do most of the talking here when comparing it with the last couple of 8-bit awful conversions. I must say, a smile appeared on my face to be playing a version of Dragon Breed which was half playable. Firstly, we have the music and some subtle sound effects. Granted, the music isn't the best music on the Commodore 64, but it is something and kind of sounds similar to the arcade game itself. Now, of course, the biggest difference here compared to the other two 8-bit computer versions is the background imagery. Now, as we know, Commodore 64's color palette is kind of dull, but that kind of works to Dragon Breed's advantage in a way. Dragon Breed isn't meant to look like Mr. Blobbyland after all, so these dull colours can kind of be excused here to an extent. You will notice that the dragon flickers a hell of a lot. That isn't a wonderful attribute to this version, granted, but it works and controls really nicely as we have plenty of manoeuvre room here as everything has been scaled down, which to be fair works much better than Amstrad and Spectrum's large sprite and small gameplay screen issues. I even made it to the first boss here, which I will say that unlike the arcade game where the boss emerges as part of the first stage, we actually meet the first boss here with a fade out and fade in. Really though, without an ounce of a doubt, the C64 1990s conversion wins this 8-bit micro battle. This version even comes with a better introduction too. Okay, so we don't see Chaos walk into the dragon like in the arcade game, but we get an awesome rock which is erupting. And in first place we have the Commodore Amiga's 1990 release. Now let me say, by no means this is a perfect conversion, but it is, in my humble opinion, the best of what we got for home conversions. The difficulty level of this one is also sky high. The things this version did do right was giving us a larger gameplay area, although the sprites are on the larger side, which I think should have been toned down a touch here to allow for better gameplay, much like the Commodore 64 versions did. By no means is it overcrowded as badly as the Atari ST's version was. Now, we do have some slight slowdowns here when too much is happening at once, but generally, it is a fairly smooth experience of Dragon Breed. Sadly, we only have a choice of music or sound effects here in the game, which I chose music, and have to say that the music is by far superior to the Atari ST's version. Colours are fairly nice and bright here. Controlling the dragon is pretty good too. Like I say, by no means a great version, as again I don't think Dragon Breed particularly had a great version to play at home. Just like most other versions, the difficulty level is ridiculously tough here, but I did manage to make it to the second stage, so not as challenging as other versions. It opens up like the Atari ST's version with the stage 1 dragon claw animation, but sadly we also don't see Chaos running to hop on the dragon here either as the game starts. As we know, this only got ported to 5 platforms. I am pretty confident to say that if the Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis had a conversion of this game, it would likely have been a really good one compared with everything else that was officially released at the time. So anyways, that's it for ranking the various different ports of Dragon Breed today. Which version was you unfortunate enough to have? Or did you actually enjoy your version of Dragon Breed, say on the Commodore 64? It's a very disappointing bunch of home conversions and probably one of the worst bunch of conversions I played in my series so far. Let us know in the comments what you played growing up and which would you put in first place. Anyways, until next time, thanks for watching.